This event in particular is focused around women in tech. Such an exciting topic, so critically important. I'm Kim Nicholas. I'm the Executive Director of Genesys Works, and I'm excited that you're all here and interested in this discussion. According to Built-in, only about 25% of technology jobs are held by women. But according to TechCrunch, 74% of middle school girls express a desire for a career in STEM fields. So hopefully this discussion today can help us close that gap and be able to sustain and retain that interest and that potential in our young lives that then become professionals. So we're really excited to have our panelists here today. We've got Yvette Rodriguez. She is going to moderate tonight, and she is an alumni of Genesys Works and has gone on to create a career now at CIBC, but she started, I think, along the way. So she's going to speak to us here and talk a little bit about herself. In addition to that, we have Lisa Olmstead, who's the Executive Vice President at TransUnion, an amazing champion for Genesys Works, and the impact that we've had is in large part from the commitment of TransUnion. And then we have Stephanie Caldwell. She is a senior Workday Financial Consultant at TopBloc, and we're really lucky to have her join us as well as a woman in engineering and tech to talk about navigating those waters. And then we have Desiree Vargas here, luckily. She's the Executive Director of Techrise at P33 Chicago, and obviously works with a lot of innovators in the tech space and trying to create opportunities for successful businesses out of that space. So before we go forward, I just want to talk about Betsy Ziegler. We intended to have our event at 1871, but in caution decided to postpone having our in-person cocktails and conversations for now. But we were just lucky to have gotten a conversation with Betsy and be partnering in this work. Betsy, thank you for joining us tonight.
Of course.
So 1871's work, I just want to brag about you a little bit, is to build a more inclusive and diverse community in order to provide those that are underrepresented a pathway into technology and innovation leadership. And it's critical, and we are grateful to work with you and alongside you to continue to provide these opportunities, and particularly for young women. So Betsy.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry that we're not in person, as Kim mentioned, but I know you're in great store for a wonderful conversation tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words about 1871. Kim, your introduction was spot on. I'll take that recording and share it with my team. They can replicate it. We are a proud partner of Genesys Works. The philosophy and the mission and the objective of Genesys Works dovetails very well into 1871's. I don't know how many listening have been to 1871. We are physically located in the Merchandise Mart, and our job is to help people from all backgrounds be successful, to increase the probability of their success and shorten the time frame from them to reach it. And we support what we call across the whole business maturity curve. So we have a whole bunch of people that have an idea that don't know if that idea can become a business. We've got about 430 of those people right now, and they're connected virtually. So most of them are in Chicago, but we've got people spattered across the entire globe. Then we've got growth stage teams, so companies that have really kind of figured it out and are starting to scale. We've got about 300 of those. And in a second, I'll just touch on some of the programs we're doing in particular to support women tech leaders. And then we've got corporates and enterprises, and we support about 60 of those, 60, on innovation efforts inside of their organizations. And so the reason that's important is that no matter who, as an individual or as an organization, you can find a spot on the maturity curve that you're at that we can help you. And I've got different teams that support on each of those dimensions, because of course the job is different depending on where you are. With respect to diversity and creating pathways for people, and we partner with Desiree and P33 and Verizon on and supporting her Techrize program, and like I said, Genesys and a number of other organizations across the city and the state. About 30% of our founders are women. Chicago leads the country with about 34% of founders being female. The national average is somewhere between 18 to 20%. So we almost double the national average in terms of the percentage of women that are trying to start businesses here. We don't do as well on giving them capital. Don't have enough time today to dig into all of that, but and that's part of what Techrize is trying to help unlock, a portion of what the Techrize mission is. And you'll hear much more from Desiree and much more complete message from Desiree in a little bit. We have about 22% of our founders are Black. So of that 430, 30% are female, 22% are Black, 10% are Latinx. And we have goals by July of 2030 to mirror the city of Chicago. So 30% Black, 20% Latinx, Hispanic American from that perspective of a diversity point of view. So we're thrilled to see these founders really flourish and to build businesses in their neighborhoods where they are. Yes, we're located in the Merchandise Mart on the river, in River North, but we want people to build where they live and create jobs for people that live in those communities. And so now we deliver all of our content, both virtually, in person, and a couple of weeks ago, we rolled out our first ever augmented reality platform that doesn't require goggles, but you can engage as an avatar with the whole community to drive inclusion and belonging no matter where you are. And so we're excited about that. And then the last thing I'll say, Kim, before I hand the mic back over to you is, for those that are tech leaders who do not want to be a founder, perfectly fine. We have leadership accelerator programs designed specifically for younger tenured women in that 3 to 8 year period. And we've got about 100 that have gone through those programs so far. And so we are constantly looking for new ways to better support underserved populations, underserved communities, and we welcome the ongoing partnership with Genesys Works and figuring out different pathways for our communities to connect and grow and thrive together. And I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words tonight.
Well, thank you again for being here. It's just a great opportunity to learn from each other here on this panel, to learn about opportunities and also challenges, and what are the barriers and what happens and what can we do to keep those things from happening that then exclude women from feeling their sense of belonging in the space and the ability to achieve well in the space. And so anything we can do, and Genesys Works, for those people that have joined us now, our organization places high school seniors into paid internships during their senior year, 20 hours a week for 10 months. And through that experience and that opportunity, as well as the extensive training that they get in tech, in accounting, they end up in these internships and the lights go on. And the vast majority, I want to say something around like 57% of our graduates stay in the tech industry, working in the tech industry. And coming in, they didn't know what it was. And, we're definitely not familiar with that, but curious. And that's all we need, right? Curiosity. And then we can work with that and we can really mold and support their ambition. So that's Genesys Works. One of our most, proud products of Genesys Works is here tonight, and her name is Yvette Rodriguez. Yvette is amazing. She is our moderator. Yvette is a Genesys Works alum. Yvette started her journey as the local technology support intern at Accenture, took on the challenge of working alumni role at CIBC, while earning her degree in Management Information Systems at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and now works as an Information Security Analyst at CIBC. Welcome, Yvette.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. As Kim mentioned, I'm Yvette Rodriguez. I'm a Class 5 Genesys Works Alumni. It is an absolute pleasure to be joining all of you today and discussing such an important topic close to my heart as well as a woman in tech. So without further ado, we'll jump right into our questions for our panelists. So starting with Lisa, can you please introduce yourself as well as with your current role, your company, and why you chose a career in tech?
Sure thing. Thanks, Yvette. Hi, everybody. Lisa Olmstead. I work for TransUnion, based here out of Chicago. My role is currently Executive Vice President in our Global Operations Organization, which some folks would say, wait a minute, that's not tech. But historically, I am, my degree is in computer science, computer engineering, and the vast majority of my roles over my career have been in technology. Most recently at TransUnion, I was our international CIO. And I chose a career in tech because, first of all, I love math, I love puzzles, I love games, and so logic. And so for me, and I'm going to date myself here, when I was in high school in the 80s, computers were kind of cool, kind of new, but they really tapped into that. You can create an answer through a logical problem, right? So you have a problem and there's a very logical way to get through that problem and get to the answer. And I got hooked very early on in understanding just kind of how to connect those things. The other influence was probably my mom, although I don't think she would ever realize it. She was a typing teacher. And so she mandated that we learned how to type. And so at one point I could type 90 words a minute, and that made me an awesome person to be able to write code and work on a computer, and just kind of launched into that. It made it a heck of a lot easier than some of the folks I was going to school with learning computers who didn't know how to type.
Desiree or whoever would like to.
I'm happy to go next. I'm Desiree Vargas Wrigley, and I am a two-time Latina founder here in Chicago. I built two companies. The first one was called Give Forward. It's now part of GoFundMe, and it was one of the first crowdfunding platforms in the world. And that's really what got me into tech, is that I studied Latin American studies. I worked at the Kauffman Foundation, but when I saw a problem that didn't have a solution yet, it took me 18 months to get up the courage, but I was like, well, why not me? Why can't I be the one to solve this problem? So the answers to that were that I didn't have a tech background. I didn't know how to build anything on the internet. So I had to go find all of those things and learn along the way. But now, I've been bitten by the bug and I can't leave it. But I currently work on something called Techrize, as Betsy shared, that's in partnership with P33, or P33 built it in partnership with Verizon. And we work with 1871 and many of the other incubators and programs in Chicago to help support Black and Latinx founders, really at the friends and family stage, through weekly pitch competitions that brings our community of funders and fellow founders together to put somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 into the hands of founders to help them get started.
Stephanie, you would like to pitch in?
Hey, Yvette, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Stephanie, but I don't know if you've seen in the chat, but it's very hard to hear you. So I wonder.
Still very low?
Yeah, I apologize to interrupt everybody. Thank you.
No worries. How about now? Is that better? Perfect.
Yes, perfect.
Good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Caldwell. I am a senior Workday Financials Consultant. I work for a company called TopBloc that's based here in Chicago. We implement a software called Workday, which is an HR, payroll, financials platform. So I am primarily on the financial side right now. My interest in tech goes back a long way, but I've always been into math. Math was my favorite subject in school, like starting from a very early age. Love numbers, love computers, and anything related to that. So by the time I got into high school, I didn't really know like which math or which tech career to choose. I was like, okay, like math teacher, statistician, computer engineer, something related to that. And so since I didn't know the specific area of science and tech I wanted to get into, my college counselor suggested mechanical engineering. So that's what I ended up studying in college. That's what my degree is in. After college, I was choosing between engineering jobs and tech consulting jobs. And so tech consulting was the field I ended up in because they were the first to hire me out of college. But I really have loved it. So I graduated in 2015. So I've been in tech consulting ever since. Started more on the integrations, computer programming side, and made my way to financials with Workday. And so I really love what I do, and it really gives me a chance to flex my technical muscles every single day. So very happy with the path I've chosen.
Thank you, ladies. Great. So considering the entry into your tech careers, were there any barriers that you faced when joining?
Yeah, maybe I'll start. I think I might have joined earliest for our group here, so the barriers were a little bit different back then. But you know, I was the only female in my college courses that was pursuing computer science. Everybody else was a man. When I got my first computer job, I was fortunate enough to have my first child a few years into my job, and I wanted to return to work. And my boss had never had a woman come back to work before after maternity leave. He had no idea how to process the paperwork, what to do with it. And he's like, why are you coming back to work? And it was because I love my job, right? And it was kind of breaking through some of those barriers of treating women differently because they do want to take maternity leave or come back to work. Or there were, you know, I happened to work for a utility company the first part of my career, and, you know, more often than not, you had to go to a different floor to find a women's restroom because it was so dominated by males that they had kind of converted restrooms into both restrooms being males on some floors and then women having like one floor. But you know, so for me, it was just like, it wasn't hostile. It was really, I'd say, ignorance. And I mean that in a polite way. It was truly not understanding how to accommodate anything that a woman would need or would want, and whether those things might be different or the same as what men would want. And I think it took a lot of conversations, a lot of patience, and a lot of persistence to start creating, you know, a group or a focus on, hey, maybe we need to think about this a little differently when we're dealing with women or women are in the workforce. But yes, I don't think those barriers really exist nearly as much today. Like I said, I think that there's a broad recognition for it. To me, it's more now, how do you start to recruit and actively focus on recruiting for women and then retaining those women, because it's such a hot market and a hot commodity that you can really write your own ticket.
Stephanie or Desiree, would you like to share your experiences?
Sure. I would say the main barrier that I faced growing up was access and awareness, for sure. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, very low socioeconomic environment. Most of the families were working class to lower middle class. And so the biggest thing was that people who grow up in communities like that and environments, we don't see a lot of people who are in tech careers, because the main focus is just putting food on the table and supporting your family, getting your bills paid on time and things like that. So I was very blessed to go to a high school that was very focused on exposing inner city students to math and science and tech, engineering related fields. To be transparent, I didn't even know what engineering was going into high school. The only engineer I had heard of were the engineers who worked on cars. And that's great. But when I went into going into high school, since they were a very tech, mathy focused program and focused school, they were like, oh yeah, there's this field called engineering. It's a marriage of math and science. You can study that. Like, yes, someone who grew up in an inner city background with that low socioeconomic situation can go into this field. So junior year of high school, it was a requirement for all of the students in our school to get an internship, or they put us in internships. And I had an internship in corporate America. My boss was amazing. She was also an African-American woman. And so I could see, going into her every week for the semester I was able to see, like, wow, like, me as a Black woman from a low socioeconomic environment could have a job like this, could be successful in the area that I've always known that I was gifted in. And so us having access to those opportunities in high school definitely helps. Like, I don't think I would have chosen engineering as a field because, again, I didn't know it existed. And also just being aware that there were female engineers out there who were doing their thing. So why couldn't I do the same thing? So, and to the second part of that question, I definitely believe those barriers still exist today. Very low exposure. It is in all STEM fields in communities like the one I grew up in. And so, yeah, we definitely need to take steps to do better in that area. And I have seen things like slowly improve as more programs are coming out to like support this and fix the problem. But I definitely think that we could do more. And I'm excited to help in any way I can.
As a non-technical person in technology, I would say that I think that there is an evolution that we need to make in teaching young people about what technology is. You know, I remember I did sign up for a computer science class in the 90s when I was in high school, and the first assignment was to build a calculator. And I was like, why do we need to build a calculator? There are hundreds of calculators and tools that we can already use. And fast forward, 20 years in my career, what I do the most is recognize where different pieces of technology can come together to create something new and better. And, I was always good at math and science, but I, didn't understand that technology could be about weaving the pieces together just as much as it can be about building like the source code or the new app. And so I think that that's an opportunity that we have as the next generation to teach, young people that how we use technology makes you a technologist, not just building and creating something from scratch. So I would say that's one. And then within sorry, go ahead.
No, Desiree, I was just going to add on, I think that's a brilliant statement. And I think one of the things that I've learned in my career is how technology enables the business or enables the community is almost more important than what the technology actually is as well. So I think you're spot on. I love that comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're moving into a world of very low code for consumer products and things. And of course, there's always going to be engineering behind the scenes, and there need to be more women there. So I want to encourage that. But I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter, and she is looking at the world still in kind of the, like, you can be a lawyer or you can be a doctor. And so I'm working very hard to help her recognize that, no, you can take your passion and turn it into something that, creates value for the world through technology. So
That's awesome.
Hopefully my boys will follow it.
Right.
Thank you. Great discussion, especially on barriers. I feel like it's always a challenge, and this is where it starts, having conversations about them. Jumping on, when you think about your current companies, do you feel that your company does something very actively when recruiting women or underrepresented groups in tech?
I guess I'll keep our pace going. I'll go first again. That's no problem. I think there's a couple things that we do. The one thing we've created that I think there's been two things that have been really impactful. One is we've created a women's resource networking group, which is not focused just on tech careers, but because we are a tech company, it does highlight, and the majority of our employees are in our either technologies or analytics area. It really does bring those people together, and it's created a great sense of teamwork, camaraderie, the ability to kind of reach out and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. A lot of networking happens there, which I think is always a challenge for women in general. But I think specifically women in tech, you get buried in the project of the day or the off hours call that you might be handling. And it's just a great group to navigate that stuff with. So our women's resource network group has been huge. The other thing is really our Genesys Works partnership, I would say, to put in a plug for Genesys Works. We've been working with them for over 10 years, and each class of students that come in continue to impress and amaze me. And we were able to show that you can expand beyond just tech. And I think to Desiree's point, it's kind of bringing together your tech skills or your math skills or your analytics skills and seeing what do you create new beyond that. Personally, for myself, my career has bounced between being a technologist and then running business operations based on that technology. I've done a lot of large project implementations, and then I've had to run the business that those projects have served. And so you get to really see what makes a good technologist, what makes a good business partner, and how you can bring those together. And I think that's been hugely helpful for us. I think the organization, TransUnion specifically, has also been very invested in how do we give back to the community? How do we really invest in the community that we're in? And Genesys Works is one of the ways we do that.
Yes, to piggyback off that, like my company has something similar. We have employee resource groups. And it's not just for women, but for other like underrepresented groups in tech as well. And one of the benefits of being a part of a small company is that you don't have, well, we can't like go straight up to the CEO and like say, hey, we have a problem with this, but it is like shorter steps to get our voices heard and our concerns listed to the leadership. And our company culture is always really great about that. Like they always provide a space where issues can be heard and things related to that. So that's one thing. Another thing is our recruiting team. Our recruiting team itself is also very diverse. So we have, it's very multiracial, multi-gender. We have pretty much every people group represented on our recruiting team. So that definitely helps to eliminate some of the bias maybe that might come in when it comes to hiring into tech positions. And since we're a small company too, we're always evolving and they're always actively looking for ways to change. So my company is also a Genesys Works partner. And so the whole way that that partnership started was that I brought it to the director of my department. Like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me take it to the leadership. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's get the contract signed, you know? So they're always, and our intern started this year in September and they love her. They were raving about her on our company meeting today because she's involved in our IT and HR operations. So they're just like, wow, this is amazing. So just like things like that, they provide a space where we can be heard. They make sure that our teams themselves are diverse and they're even looking for future ways to improve that as well. So nobody feels that they're like sitting alone struggling with their own problems because it really is a team environment. So
for us, when we think about recruiting women into tech, we think about helping them identify as tech founders. A lot of women run businesses that rely on tech, but they don't think of themselves as a tech founder. And so we at P33, do outreach to Women's Business Development Center, to the Illinois Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, to Little Village Chamber of Commerce, to Sunshine Enterprises and New Covenant, and really looking at the different neighborhoods of our city to recognize where there are women who can, if they are lightly tech enabled, how can we help kind of identify opportunities for technology to further enhance or improve their businesses and bring them into Techrize so that they can experience that. And then, we really do try to have representation across every one of our competitions, and we live stream them on YouTube so that women who are watching can say, well, if she can do it, maybe I can too. And so we think we're kind of recruiting behind the scenes just through the mechanism of displaying all of these pitch competitions. And it's definitely working. We have seen a lot more women apply than we did at the very beginning of the year. And 57% of the winners so far have been women. So we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
right.
Good. So what is one piece of advice that you would give companies or the larger Chicago tech community when it comes to encouraging women and encouraging underrepresented groups to seek careers in tech?
I'll go first again. I think, I think Desiree hit on it earlier. It's, we're getting into a world where it's a low code environment. There's a lot more of bringing together tech than hardcore coding, particularly when you kind of get into the cloud enablement and you move some of the on-premise software and delivery services to the cloud. So I think it's don't expect every woman in tech to have a mechanical engineering degree or a computer engineering degree or a Bachelor of Science degree. I think you can some of my best people in tech that have worked for me have degrees in music and have degrees in mathematics, have degrees in marketing and creative sciences, because those are the people that really bring a ton of energy. And I think it's huge. I've always said you can learn the skills. Skills are easy to learn. It's the mindset, the attitude, the wanting to be part of creating something, solving problems that is really the will part of the job that I think makes technology fascinating.
I will add that I would bet more than 50% of everyone's customer service team is a woman who is a very, very capable potential product manager, product leader, and that not to overgeneralize our gender, but we typically have a higher level of empathy and often emotional intelligence, which makes us very good at product development and leading teams, especially in an agile environment. So I think that one of the best things we could do is go into our customer support teams and draw our highest potential talent out of there and put them through a few months of rigorous training with a great leader and sponsor. And I think we could double overnight the number of women in technology if we just had a concentrated effort there.
Yeah, I would say for companies to be intentional in creating safe spaces for people to be heard. Because I know a lot of times, and I've seen it in my very short career, but growing, that a lot of times assumptions are made that people are okay and that they're feeling okay in the spaces that they're in, but they're not, because a lot of times they didn't take time to ask or to hear them out. So definitely be intentional about creating those spaces. And also listen, keep an open mind and listen and be flexible and open to change.
Good. Now to piggyback off that question, is there one piece of advice that you would give any women interested in tech?
Oh, women.
Yeah, I think don't be afraid to try it. That, you know, most people start not knowing anything and coming in, and it's natural to have imposter syndrome and to wonder if you belong there. But if you have an interest in it, and, you know, why not you? Why can't you be the one to go and be the next person to build something great, or to be on a team that's building something great? So, you know, have faith in your ability to learn quickly and go for it.
Yes, go for it. That would be my advice. You can do anything that you want to do, anything that you set your mind to, anything that you desire to accomplish in your life. So go for it and find people to support you. That's a good support.
I was going to go last this time because I think we probably all would have had the same answer, which is don't be afraid to try it. And I think, you know, nowadays you don't have to view your career choice as a death sentence. And there's only one career I can go into and the only career I can ever do. And so there's no downside of trying it. If you love it, which you probably will, then you can stay in that career or move on to something else. And it still looks awesome on your resume and looks awesome on your experience. And our world is powered by technology, right? So any work you do in technology helps you in any other aspect of the business, because that's just how the world is powered these days. So I'm 100% with everybody on the call here. Go for it, and go for it assuming you're going to love it, but not that you have to stay in it forever. It'll just make you that much more powerful into the next career you go into, and then you can come back into it or stay in it.
Yeah, and to piggyback on all of those things, I'm realizing that when I said the thing about if we went to our customer service teams and brought them up, but those same people can be applying to jobs that are a little bit out of reach and asking advisors and managers to help them find the training that they need to be ready for that role. And so it kind of goes both ways, and, you know, reach higher than you think you maybe deserve right now, because there are people that want you to be on that path and will help pull you up and get you the help that you need.
Great words. Thank you all. Kim?
So if there are questions, feel free to come off of mute and ask them directly, or put them in the chat if you feel more comfortable that way of our panelists, and you can direct it, or you can just provide it as an open question for anyone to answer. But please, if you have one, throw it in the chat or speak up.
One thing that I failed to talk about was some work that some of my other teammates at P33 are working on. So I'd love to just share that for a second. So one of the things that we're working on is something called Strong Start, that really looks to like intercept juniors and seniors in high school who are maybe not thinking about tech to start thinking about tech. And so we're really focused on our South and West side and trying to get parity there for young women to think about it. So I guess keep an eye out. And if you have schools that are interested in joining us, you can reach out to us at P33. And then another one is called Tech Pass, and that is recognizing that there are a lot of students that enter into tech fields in college, but don't end up finishing because they aren't really sure where to go or how to get internships, or they get kind of sidetracked by a single class. And so this is an app that some of our, I think, city colleges are piloting next year to think about, to show students like what the career path is, or what the school path is, to be able to be career ready when they graduate, in 4 years. So those are two things we're working on.
Desiree, I love that, because I I've seen so many people get derailed by Java when they take their first Java class and they're like, that's it, forget it, tech's not for me. And if you could just get beyond that class, there's so much better tech classes after that one.
Yeah, agreed. Chemistry, freshman year of college was my worst class. I actually failed it. And so I was reconsidering like my degree at that point. They're like, no. Like, it's just one of the weed out classes. Like, if you get past the first year, like things get so much better. They were 100% correct.
Yes, yes.
So we do have a question here. Tom Nolan is asking, what can we all be doing to create a larger pipeline of tech interested young professionals coming out of our high schools and eventually college programs? So anyone want to address that? On the high school level, I would say obviously Genesys Works is an amazing solution for this, in that there's limited resources for the Chicago Public Schools, as we all know. And so their ability to pair and create these individual internships is limited. And so to partner, these schools that partner with Genesys Works and put their interested students through Genesys Works obviously are deeply committed to having this opportunity and really are grateful that organizations like ours exist in order to provide that, in which they just don't have the resources to do that on top of teach all the core content. So that's just my idea. It's like Genesys Works. That's my idea.
Yeah, I love Genesys Works, but I think it also goes to some of the other comments we made earlier, which is it's really explaining what a tech career is. And I think, and all the different ways you can get into a tech career. So it's just not this rigorous, I have to, sling code 12 hours a day for the rest of my career. That's not tech anymore. And I think it's making sure we get the high schools to understand and educate kids on that. And then see that, analytics and data are part of tech careers, right? As well as all the other aspects of bringing together software deployment and product management and, program management. All those things are factored into a tech career. So I think it's the education around what does it mean to have a tech career, that it's got to start in the high schools.
I also think we can kind of reverse path it a little bit. So if we, look at, like, I know I'm very partial to entrepreneurship, obviously it's where I've spent most of my career, but if you think about the classes where students are solving a problem and deciding whether or not they want to, bring it into life and become a business, or even if they have an idea for like selling t-shirts or whatever that is, and they go through the process of creating a Shopify page, which is this, low code solution, or a cash drop page from their phone selling on Instagram, then to be able to tweak some of those things, and they're inevitably going to want to, there's like, oh, you end up learning like a teeny bit of HTML so that you can get like your email marketing going. And then you're like, oh, this isn't so scary. And you start to kind of get more interested. And so I think we can kind of come from the demand side almost of this and teach students how they can be empowered by these third-party tools to create tech that then gets them interested in making deeper inquiry into what's behind it. And not everyone will, but they'll feel way more empowered if they know that there's these third-party tools. And so much of our tech education, I think, is like, start with the foundations, learn Java, then build on it, and then build on it, because that's how things normally are learned. But I think if we want to create students who have, investigative abilities and who like to problem solve, we have to go from the other side too.
Yeah. That statistic that talks about 75% of the middle school girls are interested in this profession, but yet only 25 actually work in it. So I think that's just such a great question. And, to be conscious of what happens between middle school and college, that women or young women at this moment see this as a place they belong. And I love this idea that you had, Desiree, where it's really coming from an innovative entrepreneurial spirit, and then technology comes in the back, because creating something in your mind and like some kind of business seems a lot more, approachable than taking Java, to your point, right? Like, so maybe somehow girls are getting this message that Java is the only way. And I think to get them in that entrepreneurial spirit, or in a solution-oriented spirit, that we might be better at keeping them engaged in it.
Yeah, I agree. And like the scientific process, how it lives in real life and how we explore things and try things and test things. I think, courses that focus on that at a young age and it just inspires a level of creativity and problem solving is more important than like the hard tech in high school. I mean,
Yeah.
like I studied Latin American studies. Like I really didn't know anything about tech. And now I sometimes have conversations about quantum and what that means for, for computing and what we have here in terms of research. And so it's crazy where your career can take you. To Lisa's point earlier, that, if you just keep working on new things that excite you, you end up inevitably becoming part of a tech industry.
There's another question that kind of coincides with this conversation, and it's from Donna Kelly Jackson. What high school courses are recommended to introduce a student to potential tech careers? So I think, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but if there was any that you would want to kind of steer somebody who has an interest into this type of class, what would you recommend that class be as sort of just, a view into this profession?
So my high school, when I was in high school, we did like a variety of different things. So we were required to take a tech course every year, but it covered a variety of topics. There was like one class that was on web design, like designing websites. There was another class on like graphic design, advertising, media, like making movies. There was a coding class, but not everyone was into coding, but they wanted to nail down. They're like, hey, web development, graphic design, making movies. Anything that gets your hands on a keyboard and gets those creative juices flowing is all tech, technically, like just like Desiree was speaking about. So anything related to that gets you familiar with either a software, like learning a new software, learning a new skill. I know I didn't take this class personally, but there are people who are even getting Adobe certified and like those Adobe software branch offs, and those were considered tech certifications that they would use to apply to jobs and get those too. So anything that gets you familiar with like a software platform or hardware, if coding is your way of going about it, anything science related to get those juices flowing would be a good way to just get the hands dirty.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Stephanie. I think really just about any class is a good class if it has a lab component or a software component to it. I think that's the thing I would look for. So if you like marketing, make sure there's some sort of software component with the marketing class. If you like math or if you like data and analytics, make sure you're learning SAS or R or one of those tools as part of it. So I think it's start with what's interesting and important and passionate to you, and then make sure that the classes that are offered have some sort of lab or software tooling included with them, which is not necessarily deep dive coding.
So, oh, sorry, Desiree, do you want to add to that?
No, I was just going to say I completely agree. I don't have much to add to that. I think that they both did a great job of answering that.
So Emmanuel Williamson, awesome board member of ours, has a question. It says, I see that you all have had much success in accomplishing your career goals thus far and have I lost it. Hang on. The question is, how can someone encourage their company to face their lack in diversity that creates this real result, women in tech? Like, what advice do you give to someone who's sitting in a company that doesn't have this as maybe an obvious priority to kind of start to focus in that direction? What would you advise?
I think I would start with then we need the men in that company to be the advocates and the voice, right? And when the men in the company start saying, we have a problem here, we're not diverse enough, we don't have enough women at the table, that gives the women in that company permission to partner with them and speak up as well. I think until someone becomes the advocate for the underrepresented group, whether it's women or Latinx or Black, it doesn't matter to me, right? Age, whatever. Someone's got to speak up on behalf of that group to give them permission to have that voice. And so that's what I would encourage, is to create a coalition with the overrepresented group that's speaking up to bring that underrepresented group to the table.
Yeah, I was just going to add that it's such a liability in this current environment, this current job environment, not to be focused on diversity. I mean, the job pool is just so competitive right now.
Yeah.
And so if you have a candidate that is perfect, but your company doesn't reflect anything like that she recognizes as familiar, she's not going to choose your company, even if you pay her more money. So I think that it's about exactly what you said, Lisa, like making sure that the people who are in the room are advocating for more diversity from the top. But then I think it's also the people that are in HR and in recruiting that, you know, they have to make the business case for why this is crucial to the success of the company in the future.
Yes, nail on the head, both of you. I've actually seen that work at my current company. So when our employee resource groups started to form, the HR department is our liaison to the leadership. So, and we do have a lot of people from like men, Caucasian, like people in our employee resource groups that help to drive it more, and it holds more weight. So we take it to HR takes the leadership, and they're, oh, okay, everybody's on the same page. And we're like, yes, we are. And so I've seen that message produce more visible results faster when all of that is happening. So I agree.
Positive peer pressure. We call that positive peer pressure.
Yes.
One thing I've seen too is, you know, some companies are openly admitting their makeup and on their careers page and just holding themselves accountable to changing that number. And I thought that's, you know, pretty impressive to do. I mean, it can be a real eyesore for some of them. They're, you know, pretty embarrassed by it, but it means that they're at least moving forward and trying to do something about it.
All right, here's one more question that I think we have, which is, what advice would you have for parents or adults who are in a position to influence young girls that they are not limited to nor best suited to certain careers based on gender? Like, what are sort of the do's and don'ts of influence of young girls in this space? I wish I had girls. I don't have any. Dang it.
I do, and
my
it's,
boys
you know,
would be upset that I'd said that, but you know.
well, I mean, I do think that part of the answer is actually raising young men who are feminists, right, and who see
Right.
strong women in their lives, and you know, they admire that attribute in their peers, their female peers, and so, you know, I very much hope that that is one thing. This isn't really the same at all, but I do make a really strong effort to do things in front of my kids that women, you know, wouldn't always do. Like I do coach their football teams. And I think that's important for my daughter to see that, like, I'm the only woman out there doing it, but it's because, like, one, the other dads didn't sign up to do it, so I was willing to do it. But also, like, these are things that you think of as male dominated, but you know, my team won all the games. And so, you know, like, if you just why not put yourself out there and try new things? I think it's really about, like, I'm trying to remove some of that need for perfection and that like constant need for praise that often as young women we are raised to do in order to experience. And there's a great book on this that I'm forgetting the name of right now, but I see it with my boys too, that like boys get all of these opportunities for micro failures, you know, like in rejection from their peers. Like they throw a terrible pass and their friends make fun of them and they just like shake it off and they go back out and play. And as a young woman, I feel like if one of my friends told me I had a terrible throw, I would really take it personally and it would be this like silly reaction. And so I think teaching young girls to embrace those little moments of failure actually will like have a ripple effect in helping them have more confidence to put themselves out there in places that will be uncomfortable and where they're going to be the only one.
Yeah, I have two daughters who I have, and a son who I've been trying to kind of raise in this gender neutral world. And I guess for me, the biggest thing was, why do you care what other people think? Do what you want to do, look the way you want to look, kind of act the way you want to act, because for the most part, men kind of feel empowered to do that from a young age and women don't, and young girls don't. At least that's what I've noticed. It was always kind of how they showed up was important, how others perceive them. And so to take and I apologize for my like Halloween look here. All my lights in my house are going off. So I have this really kind of ghostly glow today. So I apologize for that. But it's really just like, you know, take a step back and do what you want to do for what you want to do it, not how you'll look or how you'll be perceived. And I think that means you can go into a career that historically maybe has been dominated by men, or you can wear different types of clothes to work or wear your hair a different way to work and not have to worry about it, kind of stuff. So that has been the advice I've been trying to give to my kids.
I do not have kids, so I don't know from the parents' perspective, but from I guess if I were talking to a college student or a high school student who's looking for a career, I would say don't be afraid to fall down, because you'll get back up. And some of the most beautiful moments are created from those moments of failure, kind of what Desiree was talking about, and that you'll learn so much from those that it's going to propel you to want to do better. And I grew up in a house of all boys, so I was the only girl in my family too. But what my parents did a great job of doing is just leveling the playing field. They motivated us all in the same way. There was a season of my life where I wanted to be a hockey player because all my brothers played sports and I wanted to play hockey. And my mom's like, go for it, so don't let that hold you back. Don't let the reason that you've never seen a girl hockey player stop you from playing hockey if that's what you want to do. She knew I would figure out that I would want to do something math related, but she never stood in my way and told me that I couldn't do it. They're like, follow your dreams. You can do it. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, and don't be afraid to change the path if you ever get that way. So that would be my 2 cents.
And it looks like there's another question from
We got another one
from Paul. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate the comment about a culture that was ignorant. It's funny, I used that word today myself earlier about what are challenges with people hiring Genesys Works interns, and I used that word and I felt like that's a barrier, only because people don't assume a high school senior is going to have these professional skills. So it's, learning about that. So anyway, so in a comment about a culture that was ignorant about the needs a woman may have in the workforce, if I am working in one of those places, what are some strategies that can be employed to bring those issues to the surface? And as a male, what cues should I be looking for?
I think to me that the cues they're so obvious to me as a woman, but I realize that for men, it's probably a little bit different. But it's like when you walk into a meeting room, how many women are in the room, right? If you're sitting at the table, are the women sitting at the table, or do the women take chairs in the back, right? Who's taking notes in the meeting? Is the woman the only person taking notes? Is the woman not speaking up unless she's called upon? Does she not interrupt other people where men are interrupting each other constantly? I think these are all what I call kind of back chair behaviors that women in general, and particularly women in tech, if tech is dominated by men, tend to fall into, myself guilty earlier in my career as well. So I think those are cues that are quite obvious that I don't think you recognize if you're not that singled out person in the room. I think what to do is invite them in, right? I mean, it's really back to that, be an advocate. Say, well, hang on a second. We haven't heard from Lisa today. Lisa, what are you thinking about this? Hang on a second, Tom, are you going to take notes and recap the notes from this meeting? I mean, really being deliberate about changing who's got what role and who's participating and actively participating in the discussion, to me, is probably one of the biggest things that changes it in the corporate workplace.
Yeah, I would also add just, talking to some of the more senior or junior women that you trust in the org and asking them, like, just candidly, like, what is it about this workspace? It could be like the positioning of the bathrooms, like you were talking about, or it could be the fact that there is, of course, like everyone wants a lactation room now, but like, what if there's really no place? And so someone who you don't even know is pregnant is stressing about, like, how are they going to come back to work? And that's something that you can get in front of with months and months of notice. So, asking, like, what would make this an easier place for you to be and to work and to be successful, and just like demonstrating that you care, I think is going to be step one in helping identify and empower that person. And then I also think making sure that in not just asking and answering questions, but that women are in presenting roles. And so if you have a woman working on your team and you are the senior person, like allowing that that woman to have the voice in the room to present her ideas and her thoughts in a structured environment where leadership is present is really crucial too.
That's great.
Yeah, I agree with all of that.
Yes, check, check, check.
Check.
All right. So I think at 6:30 here, I'm going to do some closing remarks. Unless we have other questions, other burning questions, I could talk about this subject all day, every day, because I think there's so many opportunities. But just again, thank you all for joining here tonight and learning a little bit about this work and how we can engage with women in this space to keep them in this space and keep them engaged and hopeful and curious in this space. So while many of you are familiar with Genesys Works program, what you may not know is, 57% of our class 12 identify as female. And since our first opened, we have had strong participation from young women looking to gain technical and professional skills and training. So that's really wonderful. When you bring Genesys Works intern, you are helping to expand a young person's scope of career possibilities, straight up. So by providing this valuable work experience at a critical juncture in a woman's life could seal the deal and really support a better Chicago by having more diversity in the tech space, more voices in the tech space that create a level of innovation that we might not currently have because they're not at the table. So whether it's a young woman or other unrepresented groups in tech, we have an opportunity to work together to build a more diverse and equitable future for Chicago. And I think sky's the limit. And again, I just really want to thank all of you for joining us here and our panelists for your expertise and really your vulnerability, opening up about challenges that you've had to face just being a woman in this profession. And we really appreciate your candor on that. And Yvette for being a gracious moderator. And congratulations on your success in your profession as well. So we hope to see you all and, hire some Genesys Works young women out here. Keep it happening. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you. Bye, folks.
Good to meet you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.